happen. The Global Lady to Lady Conference is live in London at Fairfield Concert Hall, Croydon, Saturday the 21st of March. That's Fairfield Concert Hall, Park Lane, Croydon, CR9. Doors open at 9:30 a.m. for a 10 a.m. start. Register free at ladytoladyglobal.org or call 020 3983 9394.
Hey, good evening. How you all doing today? Hope you've all had a fantastic weekend and, as always, a better start to the week. Today's the 10th of February. Wow, the time's really sort of put on its spikes and it's running this 100 meters race. It was only sort of like yesterday that we were all celebrating Happy New Year, and I still find myself saying Happy New Year to a few people who I haven't seen from the start of the year. I don't actually know if that's actually right or wrong, but feel free to correct me. I stand to be corrected as it may be. Welcome once again to the Mindset Show, a new week. Mindset Show, as you all know, comes to you from the studios of Starr Radio UK. It's a place where we talk on how to be better versions of ourselves, how to do better than we did yesterday, and tomorrow hopefully learn to do better than we would have done today. It's a delight to have all of you on board, for all of you joining us through social media. Big welcome to you guys. Those of you who would be listening to the show on our Facebook page, Starr Radio UK, or those who will be listening on any of our other social networks. I want to say thank you for joining in. You could have been doing anything else this Monday night, but you choose to tune in to me. So great delight to have you on board. Thanks for joining in. I see a few of my loyalists there one of Nigeria's greatest under 17 footballers for Tyre Terry. I want to welcome you to the show. Thanks for joining in. And Dial. Right. Today, we want to talk about confidence. How confident are you? How confident am I to roll this show out tonight? Well, we'll see how we get through by the end of the night. Do you lack confidence? Are you always afraid of sailing into the deep ends of things? Do you always feel intimidated? All these and many more. Or do you suffer from what they tend to call paralysis of analysis? Like you just overthink things, overthink. You overthink it so much that you lack any form of will to take the next step forward. You just freeze on the spot, or you suffer from certain phobias that just makes you inadequate to just take a step forward in various fields or endeavors in life that you choose to go into. Or has your lack of confidence sort of been a stumbling block to you sort of living a purpose filled life or achieving any those things that you set out to achieve for yourself, either through the years or even through the start of the new year and new decade, or are you just one of those who just accepts the situations or circumstances that you are, knowing equally and fully well that it's not the best position and place you ought to be at this point in time, but you just don't have the will, or you don't have the zeal, or you don't have the confidence to step out of your comfort zone and step into the deep waters and just sail yourself through the rough seas till you get to the still sea. And these are many more, and these, they could be related or relatable to various areas of our life. We could find ourselves being in these positions in our jobs, in our careers, in our relationship, with our health, with our image, with our endeavor, with our business. We find ourselves in several areas where just a lack of confidence becomes a major stumbling block to us just fulfilling our 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 purpose in life. And a lot of people would have thought, do you know what, many people don't sort of make headways because maybe they didn't learn, or they didn't have a good education, or they had a bad start, or what I want to say is there's so many gifted people in this world. There's so many talented people. There's so many people who have a massive capability and ability to do exceedingly abundantly more than you could even think or imagine. However, just that will and that confidence and that zeal to forge forward, to break through the storm, has been the major thing that super glued their feet to one spot, and they just have to let everything fall upon their head at that same position without finding a way of moving forward or changing themselves from that position. So this is what we want to talk about today. We want to talk about how we could use confidence to sort of banish fear completely in our life, and how we could move forward in various areas of our life to, as a confident person, and ooze confidence in all aspects and all endeavors of our life. As I say, the show, it's never a monologue, it's a dialogue. Feel free to join in the show. You could always call in on any of the studio lines on 0208 133 2257, 0208 133 2258. You can text in on our WhatsApp number 07539661744. Or you could join in any of the comment sections. I always say that wrong. Sections on our social media platform, Star Radio UK, and I'll be happy to take your call or reply to your messages as we see them and deem fit. Great. So, confidence. How do we build confidence? That's a question that, a lot of people sort of struggle with or find it difficult to answer, or just find just the whole aspects of building confidence to them is just a pushback. They're never able to really put a plan into place that they could consistently follow, whereby after a, 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 a specific period of time, they've moved forward from one position to another confidently. A lot of people just, as I said in the monologue, are just frozen to a spot because they're just afraid to take the extra step. A lot of people just feel secured in their job. They feel security in their relationship. They feel the security in their wages. A lot of people would not dare dash their, throw in their job without knowing where the next source of monthly wage would come in from, but yet step out to set up or start working on a business idea that could potentially change their life for the better. A lot of people just want to know that on a monthly basis my bills are paid, regardless of how boring and monotonous that job is. I just want to continue just doing the same thing, regardless of whether I'm going to get a promotion, regardless of whether I'm working towards working in line with my academic qualification, which ideally should make me be in a more superior position than I am at this present moment. But just because I have security in this 9 to 5, and I have security in these wages that I'm collecting at this present moment, that is covering my bills and everything else that I dare to dream or that I dare think of as a potential business venture or breakthrough, or even a risk that I have to take, I'm not confident enough to do it. I would rather just put that aside, and perchance if I do make some exceptional money, or maybe when I even retire and I think to myself, okay, I have more spare time on my hand, I have less bills to pay, then I will try this new business venture. But that's like putting the cart in front of the horse. It's never meant to really be like that. Sometimes you're meant to just step back and you're meant to just launch out into the deep, because it's only when you launch out that, number one, whether you're able to do it or not, or number two, you find, look, even before I mention number two, the truth is, when I ask the question, how do we build confidence? The truth is, we build confidence by having something to be confident about. There's no other way apart from it. There's no way you could build confidence if you're not working on something to be confident about. you know. So even in your relationship, it's hard to say you're going to build trust if there's not, you know, if there's not sort of yardsticks of trust that your partner has and enabled you to start working upon. You know, you can't have a partner in a relationship who's constantly cheating on you, or who's constantly abusing you, or who's constantly belittling you, and you say you want to build confidence in, you know, you must need one part or maybe both parts of your brain examine if that's the way things are, and you're constantly still saying you want to build, you know, some sort of confidence in that, you know. So the truth is, to build confidence, you have to have something to be confident about. And if we take it away from the external factors in terms of our job, our relationship and stuff like that, if we bring it back to our eternal person as a, you know, us as a human being, if we're looking to be confident about something, that means we have to sort of have developed ourselves, you know, maybe mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, academically, in a way where, you know, we feel confidence from inside out. You know, when you see people who are confident, a lot of people call them proud, but deep down inside of them, there's something that they, you know, that is of value, that they're confident about, and their outer appearance then begins to show, or their outer appearance is a reflection of what is inwardly embedded in them. So if we're looking at how we build confidence, and truly, you know, you don't have nothing that you could begin to build your confidence on, it's impossible for you to gain confidence. You know, I spoke about this last week when I talked about how we build a house. The first thing you do is prepare the floor, and then after you prepare the floor, you put the foundation on top of it. After you prepare the floor and you put the foundation on it, that's when you could build the ground floor. After you build the ground floor, if the foundation is strong enough, you could build the second floor. And those are how, you know, the layers of the building go. You cannot build, you cannot, without tilting the floor, decide to build, and without tilting the floor and without doing a proper foundation that's adequate for a first and second floor, just decide to build a first floor. You know, the structure would collapse. So, you know, inwardly, we need to get to a stage where we constantly examine ourselves to see what is it, you know, if we're talking about how we build our confidence, what is it that is wrong with us, why we are lacking that confidence. And, you know, I particularly like areas of self-examination, because in that there's so many things that we find within ourselves if we truly look within ourselves, as opposed to, you know, listening to external sort of commentaries. That if we do have a deep sort of session with ourselves, you know, and look inwardly, we'll be able to see, you know, results that speak for ourselves, because we all know what confidence should look like. We all know what, unless we're assuming that that's what it should look like, and it becomes wrong. So that's a different thing entirely on itself. But ideally, we all know what, you know, self-confidence look like. If we see someone who's confident, you know, we'll be able to identify them. You know, when someone walks out with their chest up and their back, you know, their head back, and they have every right to to uh to what was that, every right to stride in that manner, with that posture, we won't fault them. However, if you see someone who's, you know, faking confidence, we would know. So we all know the difference between self-confidence and lack of confidence, and, you know, a wannabe sort of person who's putting out confidence. So how do we build confidence? Let me run through some of the ideas. First of all, I said the first thing that we have to do to build confidence is to find something that we're confident about. So whatever it is, whatever area you want to build that confidence on, you have to determine and decide that yourself. Whatever area you're lacking confidence in, you have to look for that area. You have to identify that area. You only look and identify and could identify those areas by searching inwardly. Sometimes you might have people telling you, and you might think, okay, yes, he's making sense, he's saying the right things, let me examine that. But a lot of us do not want to hear or listen to constructive criticism. So it's better to have conversations with yourself to find out areas where you think you are really lacking, and then begin a game plan of how you want to begin working on it. And as I said, this could happen in your relationship, it could happen in your career, it could happen in your spiritual beliefs, it could even happen in the values that you hold dear to yourself. You might just get to a position where you just think these things are not working, not because really they are not working in themselves, but just because you've began to lose faith in the process and in the preparation and all the things that you ought to do to sort of get the best out of them. So how do we build confidence? Again, we build it through finding something to be confident in. We try as best as possible to be our authentic self. That means there's no need of trying to be a fake version of anybody else. Just be who you are. We're all sort of created uniquely in our own way. I'm sure there's a part of the scriptures that says, we're fearfully and wonderfully made. So and again, we're made in the image of God. And when you think of scientists now, saying that I'm not quite sure whether it's the statistics of one person's fingerprint being an exact match as somebody else's around the globe as being next to nothing, then you really realize that we are actually uniquely made. We're uniquely crafted by our creator. Not even the same twins, triplets, people who came out literally seconds apart at birth from the same biological mother, have the same fingerprints or have the same pupils. So in that aspect, you start to realize that our creator created us to be as unique individuals to ourselves as he best possibly could, and he doesn't really make mistakes. So why would you along the course of your life, or along the course of just dealing with what life throws at you, try to be a fake version of somebody else? Try to be a fake version of your admirer, try to be a fake version of and I know they say well, sometimes you could fake it till you make it, but I think even all of those, they have limitations. There's nothing like a person just being his or her authentic self. There's a sort of refreshness and there's a sort of genuinity that comes from you just knowing that this person is this person, and amongst all your friends, he's incomparable to none other, because he or she is just constantly being their own person. So there's no point of being a fake version of anybody else to build self-confidence. Another point is, as I made the main sort of the objective phrase being, we have to find something that we're confident about. That means it requires us to develop ourselves. because let me tell you, if you have an empty bean, an empty head, airhead, as the millennials say, and there's nothing there, it's hard for you to be confident. It's just hard for you to be confident, because deep down inside of you, you will know that there's nothing there. When you're meant to sit down and hold conversations with people, you would mutter. When you're meant to walk into rooms and project a certain image, you would fail for that image. You would fail, not fail for the image, you will fail from sort of being able to project that kind of image, and in a way you would start to feel inferior. And listen, no matter how you want to tell me that, well, I'll be who I am. Self-consciousness is really, what's the right word I could use? Self-consciousness, it never goes away, and self-consciousness is literally the truth, because it will tell you that you're not matching up, or you're not adding up. It might want to compensate you with all sorts of neurological versions of lies that might satisfy your ego, but deep down inside of you, you would know they don't add up. There would be no comparison with somebody who's got vivid knowledge on a subject, or on an issue, or on a matter, or even in a discussion, with someone who is just an airhead and just happens to find himself in that position and decides ignorance would be the order of the day. And that's just the truth of how it is. So it requires us to develop ourselves mentally, spiritually, emotionally. It requires us to gain knowledge. It requires us to be aware of our surrounding, our situation, our friends. It would just require a whole area of self-development. I don't know what area you're lacking confidence in. It might not be as deep as just you in a person. It could even be just something. People might be practicing to play the piano and just struggle. They might be able to play the piano all in harmony and in sync when they get home, and when they're at home, I beg your pardon. But once they get out into public or in front of an audience, they just freeze. But the way in which you develop yourself personally on that is you just continue to practice. There's no two ways about it. You continue to practice in front of audience, in front small audience, an audience of one, an audience of two, as many as you could garnish together. You just continue to practice. After a while, you might even, a lot of artists, a lot of singers, a lot of public speakers that I know, many of them do testify to the fact that they have butterflies in their belly before they start, or if they stand up on stage, or they look up in an auditorium, they see so many thousands of people standing there, and they would have butterflies, but they've learned to master those emotions. And how do they learn to master those emotions? Number one, they have a proper knowledge of the subject that they're talking about, and number two, they've practiced these situations so much that once they get into the realm of their subject, they zone in, their concentration just sort of zones in onto the subject, and their focus just ignites. And when your concentration and your focus ignites, everything else gets suppressed. You don't, it's not, you can't be focused and concentrating. Concentration really is a lack of a distraction of anything else. That means you're not distracted by anything else. You're just focused, you're zoned in. And when you're zoned in, you've sort of narrowed your thoughts down to the one thing you're doing, talking, or acting upon. So in that way, when you keep practicing, when you develop yourself in those in certain areas, on areas of which you are lacking confidence, when you learn to develop yourself in those areas, ultimately over the long run you will gain confidence. And that literally leads into the other point, which I wouldn't discuss too much about because I think I did mention it, which is you do need to sort of establish a clear vision of what area that you're lacking confidence in, and what part of it you want to develop. Confidence cannot be imitated. As I said, we all know what fake versions of people look like, and you either have it or you don't. Um, so yeah, let me know if you're listening or through the comment section what areas you lack confidence in and how you've sort of overcome it. I'm really interested in knowing how and what areas that over the years you've sort of struggled with, or fear has gripped you, or fear has sort of uh, limited you from just fudging forward. It just literally paralyzed you, and projects you've abandoned because of fear, or people you've not you failed to meet, or you've not networked with just because you're afraid of what their response will be. Jobs that you haven't applied for because you just you got tired of getting turned down, and fear now has just made you think you're inadequate to attain that position. Let me know, or just inbox me, let me discuss it, because I know it could be a little bit personal, but inbox me and I'll be happy to sort of share ideas. I've actually got a cheat sheet on how we build confidence, so if at any stage you are interested in this, just inbox me on my sort of personal handle, which could be found on my Facebook page or on Starr Radio UK social media handles. We are talking about self confidence about confidence in general, whether it's a confidence of self or confidence of the mind or conscious confidence. We are just talking about confidence, how we use it to overcome fear, how we develop it. And you are tuned onto the Mindset Show with myself, Tony Williams, this night. So, going forward, how do we build confidence? I've got a few more points here, and I said, I think these is one of the most important bits which you, as an individual, we need to sort of enthrone our will to rule over our thoughts, our feelings, and our physical powers. And when I say enthrone our will, when they say you enthrone someone, that means he has superiority over everything else. And willpower is a funny thing, because our thoughts would generate the ideas, or our mind, we could imagine things with our mind, and then we could see things with our mental eyes. So we imagine it. That means we send our thoughts, imagination, which literally is sending our thoughts into the universe, and then with our mental eyes we begin to picture and see these things. I would like to have this in the near future. I would like to be able to travel to this place. I would like to have this beautiful home. I would like to have this wonderful career and this beautiful job. I would like my bank account to reflect this amount of figures. So we imagine it, we visualize it with our mental eyes. But then the willpower is one thing that prevent us prevents us from going or forging thoughts to start putting those things into action. Because action in itself it's not is not anything. The word itself means, we the doing of something, but it's in in essence, it's just a word. It's the will from inside of you that forges your outer body to actually go into motion and begin to set things in plan or set things in place. Because when you're imagining things, you're not doing nothing. You could, yes, you could be having a quiet time. You could be having your time of meditation. You could be having your a time of just sitting on the beach and just picturing things how they should be. Fair enough. You call that thinking process. When you're visualizing things, you're bringing them into sort of your own physical realm, how you see them, how when you're visualizing it, you're seeing it how you would feel. That means you're beginning to create a feeling of how you would feel, what satisfaction you would get if you could find yourself in that position that you've imagined. So you've imagined yourself in that beautiful home. You've imagined it, you've seen the home, but then you've imagined it, and then you visualize that how would it be if I physically, my present self, was sitting in that 7-bedroom mansion. How would it be if I was driving that beautiful car? How would it be if my bank account was reflecting this, if I get this promotion, or if I'm the head of my department? Or how would it be if I'm able to get that app that just breaks through all generations and just becomes the next big Facebook? So we begin to visualize all of that, but without willpower, because the truth is, even before we get to the willpower, when we do all of that, the same time, with so much information at our disposal, we could begin to see things, steps that we could take, one step after the other, that would lead us into the process of making that dream. Let's call all those things now that we've said a dream, because that's basically what they are. When you package imagination and visualization together, what you really have now is a dream. And then, before, even though the dream is playing around in your head, what you before it begins to materialize, there's a process that you have to cross, a process that you have to bridge, and that process that you have to bridge is the plans you have to put in place to get there. And as we all know, a bridge could be from here to Timbuktu. You start at the first crossing. You're never just going to stretch your arms and just put a cape and just put a breastplate and boom, you've crossed the bridge in one go. It's going to be something that you take gradual steps. But you see, where I'm going is those gradual steps has to come from something called a willpower. You could have all the visualization, imagination, and package it as a dream, and just don't have the willpower to move forward. Nothing's going to happen. These are where people say they I think it was the late Miles Monroe that said at one stage I think he said there's nowhere where I don't know how it was said, but I think it's in line with the graveyards has most of the greatest dreams, dreams that people have visualized and imagined, but there just hasn't been no willpower to begin the process, or they began the process, got frustrated down the line, and just self-destruct, or they began the process and they just gave up. So willpower is when we say we enthrone it over our thoughts, over our actions, over our feelings. That means even when or after we've packaged the dream and we say to ourselves, I don't want to do it, because your willpower is enthroned above all those feelings, your willpower would override the fact that you're saying, I do not want to do it. And your willpower would, it would carry your thoughts along. Oh, I'm tired today. Nope, we've got to go because I'm the throne. I've got a purpose. I've got a plan. I'm on the throne. I've got a purpose. I've got a plan. I've got something I'm working towards. You're feeling not down today. Well, too bad. But we've got to keep working because the end result will be something that we would all appreciate. So, we must decide and learn to enthrone our willpower to rule over our thoughts, our feelings, our physical powers, allowing our outer self to give unhindered expression of our inner self. And and to be honest, sometimes you see this even in how we talk. When you look at certain people, and you could just see that they're downcast. As soon as they open their mouth, you could just tell, that they're worn out, they're stressed. They feel pity. Their willpower has just been dampened. They've instead of enthroning their willpower above their thoughts and their feelings and their physical power, they've enthroned their thoughts, their feelings, their situation, their circumstances above their willpower. Technically, those things are suppressing their willpower, and they find themselves in a position never really able to forge forward and fight the battle ahead. And in those instances, it will be difficult for such a person, in that situation, that mentality and mindset, to be able to exhibit any kind of sort of confidence in any area, at all. Just tell them, come on, let's just go out for a drink. And I'm like, I can't, So when our willpower enthralls and supersedes our feelings, our voices, our physical powers, our mentality, when it's in line with our visualization, or what we visualize and what we imagine, and our dreams as a package, we will be able to achieve many things as best as we could. Another way, ultimately, which we probably would have heard how we build confidence, is just to practice, 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 practice. I cannot say this or reiterate this enough. Just got to keep practicing. Nobody is gains confidence without starting off from an amateur. The very word that, or the very meaning of the fact, or the very word confident itself, just means you've developed something up onto a level where you feel enriched and empowered by your knowledge or your ability to express that thing or situation, in the way in which you express it. And this is just me paraphrasing, so it's not a dictionary definition, but that's what the essence of the very word really means. What does the word confident means to you? Tell me, let me know. What does the word confidence mean to you? But that's what I think the very word confidence means. The fact that you're not empty. You're not empty. There's something inside of you that your external body is exhibiting, or that you're has that you're so full of. You're just, they say an expert is someone who has narrowed down his field into one thing, and that one thing that expert has narrowed his field or wide field down into. So he's not an expert on everything anymore. He's narrowed it all down to one little thing. Do you know could you even imagine the kind of confidence that would be oozing out of this expert when he has to sort of reenact or discuss or apply or whatever he has to do about, do you know the kind of confidence that would be oozing out of him? And that's how it is, you know. And that all comes by practicing, because if they say an expert, it means he didn't begin becoming an expert. Hey, listen, people who play lawn tennis now, what's it, Nadal, I'm gonna say his name, and Hokovic. Look, every time they swipe that stroke from the start, it wasn't going at 100 miles an hour that it goes now. It probably started at probably 20 and they carried on, or probably even 10 and they carried on. Repeat it, practice, practice, practice. So now they serve a service in a Grand Slam and it's well in excess of 100 miles an hour, you know. And that's what happens. They just carry on practicing, practicing, practicing. Your gifts it would open doors for you, but or your talents would open doors for you, but the way you practice is what would keep you on top. The way you harness, or not, the way you sharpen your gift is what's going to keep you on top. You can't just say you have the gift or you're talented and then you're not going to practice on it. Before you know it, the gift will just become obsolete. Yes, we'll know you're gifted, but the gift would just become docile, dead, and buried, and so would you alongside your gift. So practicing on the areas that you're lacking confidence upon is very important. And ultimately, once you've done it for a while, even you would begin, self would begin to testify with self that you're very confident in this area. It's just like going to an exam, and that you have, burnt the candlelight through the course, or through, in all areas. You've done your study tube, you've done your YouTube, you've done all the tutorials, you've done all the extra classes, all the assignments. You don't have to be intelligent. You've just done the work. And when the questions come, you would spit out the answers as easy, because you've spent time on sort of grafting over the the paper, or over the subject, or over the model, whatever it is that and listen, people who do driving tests, all of us are drivers. Apart from those who are sort of what they call Tyrese, who probably what they call Fast and Furious, we all started, and I don't think there's anyone out here who would say to me, "Oh, I'm a bad driver," including my wife. I'm so sorry, but I don't think there's anyone who's gonna say I'm a bad driver. A lot of people would just testify that they're the best drivers there, even though when you get in the car with some people, especially some Uber drivers, you've got to hold on to the seat, because you just know this seat belt is not going to save your life if anything happens. But they will still tell you they're the best drivers. My point is, none of these people just started driving, boom, at their first imagination or first visualization of sitting behind a wheel. There had to become a time where they began to, they used their learner plates, and they were practicing and they were practicing, or they were learning and they were learning. And when they were driving, some people were just honking, "Get out of the road, you slow." And some people were just people like, I'm very impatient with learner drivers, I don't know why, I just overtake, but after a while, this learner driver, he would go through his tests and pass his tests and buy a car, get insured, get on the road with his take off the L plates, put the P plates. Some people don't want to put the P plates because they just think, oh, I don't want them to know that I'm a new driver, and just, start cruising and cruising. And at first they might be afraid to go around roundabouts, or to go into dual carriageways and motorways, but after a while, they build confidence. And these same people who now at one point were afraid to go on motorways and go through major roundabouts, you just see them doing a one hand bender round a roundabout, or flying 90 miles an hour down the motorway and stuff like that. And what how did that become? No, is it a bad driver? No, it's just because they became confident in their own ability to handle that car and the knowledge of the road. And how did that happen? It wasn't there when they were sticking up a learner sign and they had a driving instructor beside them teaching them. It came after them just being alone with their self, or even being with someone, but just constantly being on the grind, constantly driving, constantly pushing, constantly pushing, constantly pushing, until they got to that stage. Self-criticism. I particularly like self-criticism because self-criticism actually means that you're either one, you're uncomfortable, or two, you're doing something. And it allows you also to find out what the qualities are that make you effective in that area. Because before you begin to criticize yourself, you began the mission, isn't it? And then because you've began the mission, you know what is expected of you. So when you fall short of what is expected of you, you criticize yourself, and then ultimately you be able to develop how or what you can do to acquire what you're deficient on, because now you've begun the process. What are you presently doing that's sort of distracting you or hindering you from gaining the necessary steps to build confidence in those specific areas? Or what is it that we're doing, or what is it that we need to do to ensure that over a period of time, we find ourselves exactly where we want to be? Because we've began the process, it even allows us to set standards for ourselves. Because when you begin to criticize yourself, Tony, man, you're not doing this well. That means I'm setting a standard for myself. I don't need someone to tell me I'm not doing it well, because I've already told myself I'm not doing it well. And that means I've set a standard for myself. And for the fact that I know I'm not doing it well, I have to go out there and sort of empower myself more. I have to go out there and sort of put more hours in. I have to go out there and gain more knowledge. I have to go out there, and whatever it takes, I have to ensure that I've got to leverage my own confidence to a place where I could say to myself, Tony, give yourself a pat on the back. But if you're not criticizing yourself, just means you're not doing nothing. If you're not looking in the mirror, and it just means you're accepting everything, to just fall on your laps as they come. You're just saying, "Que sera, sera," whatever will be, would be. It just means that you're just satisfied where you are. And when you get to that stage in life where you're just satisfied with wherever it is, you, in my own view, and might not be in anybody else's, you've began your decline. Because the only thing that we have is life, and with life there's hope, and with hope, that means whatever we want for ourselves, we should attain. We should go for it and hope that we would be in the position to make it happen. I've got to draw the curtains here. It's actually, time actually just flies when I start these conversations. It's just funny. But I hopefully might. I've still got a bit more on how we could build self-confidence. So hopefully I might want to just touch on this again next week if I don't find nothing else that might tickle my fancy, and I think would be a great topic for the day. But thanks for everyone who's joined in. I really want to appreciate you for tuning into the show tonight, and I want to say until we speak again next week from the studios of Starr Radio and from myself on the Mindset Show, I want to wish you a very good week in advance. Good night. And yes, God bless. Let's get this done.